page 4b in Chagiga, and we're towards the top of the page, the top half of the page, I should say. And we were learning yesterday about the law of someone who is a mefunak. A mefunak is someone who is like very delicate and very particular and clean and careful and gets disgusted by doing things anything different than they're used to. And so this person is called an Eina Yachal Le'la'alois Baraglo. They're someone who cannot walk barefoot. They're too it's below their dignity. Like it's disgusting for them to walk barefoot on the Har Habayis, on the mountain of the Beis Hamikdash, and then all the way to the Beis Hamikdash. So because they are mefunak, they have this delicate side to them, this style to them that causes them to feel that way, that they are basically exempt. They're going to be exempt from going to the Beis Hamikdash, because in order to go to the Beis Hamikdash, you need to go barefoot. And the Gemara mentioned the pasuk, when you come to see my face, who asked you to come and trample on my courtyard, meaning with shoes? And Teves over here brings that there's really another pasuk, and the other pasuk is Shal Na'alecha Mi'al Raglecha, right? We all know that pasuk, that person they're supposed to take your shoes off in order to walk, in order to go in such a holy place. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was told to take his shoes off. Admas Kodesh, it says it's holy ground. Shal Na'alecha Mi'al Raglecha, take your shoes off your feet. And this was by the sneh, by the burning bush. So Teves seems to say it's surprising the Gemara brings this pasuk versus this other verse that seems to be the source. Teves answers that the source really is that other pasuk Shal Na'alecha, but here it uses this pasuk because it mentions to see my face. So it's the Gemara brings this pasuk, even though it's not the real source. The real source is really another pasuk, which we learned in Brachas, at the end of Brachas, when it talked about you're not allowed to go to the Har Habayis with your money belt and your stick, your dirty stick, and your shoes. So that's that's really connecting that Gemara with our Gemara, connecting Brachas with Chagiga we have right there, and that is this concept of not going with shoes on when you're going to be Oila Regel. Okay, so the Gemara then mentioned about the Uvasa Shama V'Havesem Shama. It talked about someone who's an Arel, someone who is uncircumcised. Arel and Tameh, they are pater from Re'iyah. They don't have to, not only they don't go to the Beis Hamikdash, they don't even send their karbanos with a shliach, with an emissary. They are exempt. And the reason they're exempt is because just like they don't have to go, because it says Uvasa Shama V'Havesem Shama. So we learn from this pasuk Uvasa Shama V'Havesem Shama, from this from the fact that it says it close to next to each other. These four words, basically teaches us that if you're obligated to go, you're obligated to bring a sacrifice. If you're not obligated to go, you're not obligated to bring the sacrifice. And a Tameh person obviously is exempt from going. He's not allowed to go. So, but it says if he's not supposed to go, then he's also exempt from the sacrifice. He doesn't send it with someone else. And the Gemara said that, how do we know about an uncircumcised person? The Gemara says, well, Rabbi Kiva learns that an Arel is just like a impure person, a Tameh. Tameh is someone impure, and just like we know that an impure person is not allowed to go to the Beis Hamikdash, and he doesn't bring the sacrifice, it doesn't send it even with anyone else. So if an Arel, if an uncircumcised person is similar to a tameh, he would basically also be exempt. Then the Gemara brought a brisa which basically said the same thing. A tummy is patur.
Rabbi,
yes.
Rabbi, this delicate person, that was the Kohen is the person who's delicate and can't walk without shoes. So how does that affect? Is he exempt from serving? The Kohen who's serving in the Beis Hamikdash, and he can't.
So what you're saying is this: our Gemara was talking about any Jew that is delicate, he's exempt from going to the Beis Hamikdash 3 times a year. You're asking, what about a Kohen who's delicate? Would he be exempt from serving in the Beis Hamikdash? That's what you're asking?
Right.
So in other words, it's not exactly connected to our Gemara, but it's this idea: would it apply to a Kohen in his avodah? Would it apply?
Because of his delicate state.
Because of delicacy. So I don't know that a Kohen has a. I'm not sure what level of obligation a Kohen has to serve in the Beis Hamikdash. In other words, if there's enough Kohanim to serve in the Beis Hamikdash, does the Kohen have a obligation to make himself available to serve in the Beis Hamikdash, or is it more like an extra bonus? And if, I know they divided up the Kohanim into mishmaros, into groups, and each mishmar has their week that they're supposed to be in the, that they do their service, but that's a rabbinic institution. That's not biblical, right? So the biblical rule of a kohen. So I don't know if you need an exemption. You hear what I'm saying, David? I don't know if he needs an exemption not to go. If he doesn't want to go and do the services, there's enough people that are doing the service. Is he obligated to travel to the Beis Hamikdash every month, to pop in there? No. First of all, they divided it up into families, into groups, and there's probably more people that they can handle. And they even had to make a raffle in the morning to decide who's going to be able to do the slaughtering, who's doing the taking this limb and that limb, doing all the, they would have a whole raffle because there were too many people to do certain avodah. So so I don't know if he needs an exemption. Yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, well, there's also something in the Torah. It says "V'chiyavo halevi," and the commentators say that actually refers to a Kohen. That deals with a situation where a Kohen, even though it's not his time to serve, he's so inspired that he goes.
He could go during the holidays,
right?
He could go in the holidays and divide and take a certain portion. But does that mean he's obligated to?
No, but I'm just saying that that if there were Kohanim that didn't want to serve, that not only in other words, that's an additional reason why there would be additional Kohanim to make up for those who didn't want to serve.
So that would work during the holidays when they're bringing sacrifices that aren't specifically for that week, that there were always extra kohanim there in the holidays. That definitely wasn't necessary for right. There were definitely more than enough kohanim during the holiday season. But I think what David is wondering is, in general, if they didn't want to go in their cycle, they have the weekly. Twice a year they would go to do their 24 mishmaros, so they would end up going about twice a year. So are they obligated? I mean, I think it would be biblical for them to serve in the Beis Hamikdash. It would not be biblical. It would be like a rabbinic thing, and I don't even know if it's like an obligation. It could be that it's divided that way as an opportunity for them to go. Does it considered, would it be considered an obligation for them to do it. I'd have to look it up and see what the what's brought down in Shulchan Aruch and the it would be the Rambam and maybe the later it's not it wouldn't be in Shulchan Aruch, I guess, because it's Hilchos Mashiach, it's halachas of the Karbanis and Beis Hamikdash. It's not in the Shulchan Aruch, but it would be in Rambam, and it would be maybe brought in other Sfarim. Okay, we could take a look. Yes, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a logistic question. In my Talmud book, I see on top of the page, it would say Perek 1, Daf 4, Amud Bet. What's the difference between Daf and Amud in the Talmud?
So, Daf includes an Amud Aleph and an Amud Bet. Every Daf has two Amudim.
Oh, okay.
So
So maybe
it's
column, maybe it means column?
No.
Because in Hebrew it's the same. Amud and Daf is the same.
Right. So sometimes Amud means column,
Okay.
but in Gemara it doesn't mean column. It means the side of the page. When you have a piece of paper, there's a Amud
so
Aleph,
side A and side B.
side B. Right.
I see. Amud A.
You have a piece of paper. This is Daf Mem Aleph, it says, right? But there's a Mem Aleph Amud Aleph and an Amud Bet, but it's still Daf Mem Vav or whatever.
Okay, so each Daf has two, an A and a B.
Right.
Now I see it. Now I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Now you see it? Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no problem. Okay. So back to the Gemara. So the Gemara then mentioned the law of a summa b'yachas meyenov, someone who's blind in one of his eyes. And generally, this would not be an exemption because the person could see. There is discussion, of course, someone who's blind, totally blind. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a Reb Yossi in the Gemara who said initially he thought that when you do a mitzvah that you're not obligated in, you get extra credit. It's like a very high level mitzvah because you're not even obligated and you go and do it. So he initially said, based on that understanding, he said, whoever tells me that a summa, a blind person, is exempt, I'll make a big party for the rabbis. Because he was excited that if a blind person is exempt from mitzvahs and he still does mitzvahs, he learns Torah and does all the mitzvahs, he figured, wow, this is amazing. Now I'm getting, extra reward. So it's great that a summa is exempt and I'm still doing the mitzvahs. But then he came to the understanding that it's greater to be obligated to do a mitzvah and do it than someone who's not obligated to do it, who does it. In other words, you get more reward. It's more special if you're obligated to do a mitzvah and you do the mitzvah, more than someone who's not obligated to and does the mitzvah anyway. So when he came to that conclusion and that understanding, so he changed his deal, and he said, whoever tells me that a blind person is obligated in mitzvahs, I'll make a party for the rabbis, because then he wanted to be obligated in mitzvahs. In this way, the mitzvahs that he does will be of more importance, will be on a higher level. So he was hoping that the Rabbanim, the Chachamim, they would paskin, they would give a verdict that a blind person is obligated in mitzvahs. So it seems that there was different opinions about a blind person being obligated in mitzvahs or being exempt from mitzvahs, and but that was talking about a fully blind person. Our Gemara here is talking about someone who's just blind in one eye. Blind in one eye should be obligated in all mitzvahs. There happens to be one exception, and even that exception is not accepted necessarily by all opinions. That one exception is someone who's blind in one eye maybe would be exempt from going to the Beis Hamikdash during the 3 holidays. Why this mitzvah would they be exempt from? What's so unique about this mitzvah? So according to that opinion, he says what's unique about this mitzvah is that it says in the pasuk leira'is, or it says 3 times a year you have to come leira'is, to be seen. and because it's spelled one way and it's read one way, it's read another way. So it comes out that there's a limud, there's a way of exposition on this verse that comes out that maybe you have to have both eyes in order to be obligated. And if someone doesn't have sight in both eyes, would be exempt from this specific mitzvah. And again, it's maybe, the reason I say maybe is because this seemingly is this one opinion, and even this not necessarily does everyone agree with. And we saw that there's reason to say that our Mishnah might disagree with this. Why would our Mishnah disagree with this? Because our Mishnah said, Hakol chayavin b're'iyah. Our Mishnah, the first 3 words of Tractate Chagiga, said everyone is obligated in going to the Beis HaMikdash. What does it say? Everyone. Why is it telling us everyone? What's that adding? And so one of the answers was it's adding someone who's blind in one eye, that you might have thought that they're exempt, and they're not. They're actually obligated. And there is one opinion that says they're exempt. So again, it's not it would not be a blanket rule that they're exempt from mitzvahs. It would apply specifically to this mitzvah where it says this word leira'os, which we have reason to darshan, to expound upon it and come up with this understanding. And again, this is one opinion, Rabbi Yochanan ben Dahavoi, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. So, and what was how did he expound on this? So he said that it's Yira Yera'eh, or Yera'eh Yira. We learned this earlier on, that there was an argument between Rashi and Teves exactly how to learn this. Rashi learned Yira Yera'eh, that the same way Hashem comes to see you, Kederach Shabal Lerois, the same way Hashem comes to see you, you also come, Kachba Liraois, you come to be seen by Hashem. It was on the first page of the tractate, and Rashi over there said that the person sees the Shechina the same way Hashem comes to see you, he also comes to be seen by you. That's the way he reads it. So, Kederach Shabal Lerois, the same way Hashem comes to see you, Kach ba Lerois, he comes to be seen by you. Teves didn't like that Hashem comes to see you and he comes to be seen by you. Hashem doesn't come. Hashem is everywhere. So Teves switches it around and he says it means you, and it means that the way he reads it is that just like person comes to be seen by Hashem with the 2 eyes of Hashem, also the person comes to see Hashem. So it's all about the person. He's being seen and he's seeing Hashem. The way Rashi learned it was like Hashem coming to see and be seen, and the problem was Teves didn't like that Hashem comes, Hashem is everywhere. So you had these 2 ways of learning, but the bottom line that came out from that teaching is that just like Hashem sees with his full vision, you also need to have your full vision, and that was this view again of Rabbi Yochanan ben Dahavoi in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so now we're up to the next Gemara, and the next Gemara talks about a lot of verses that when the rabbis read them, they became very emotional. And they were moved and touched and pained, maybe even, by reading certain verses. And so we're on page 4b, and we're by the 2 dots, about maybe 18 lines from the top. Rav Huna himati lahaikra. When Rav Huna reached this pasuk, Yira Yera'eh, which is the way it's read, the way it's written is Yira, and the way it's read is Yera'eh. Bachi, he cried. So Rav Huna cried when he saw this, when he read this pasuk. Omar, he said, Eved sherabai mitzape loy leroisai, a servant who his master awaits to see him, Yisrachik mimenu. He distances, he separates himself far from him. Dechsiv, as it says, Ki savayu lerois panai, when you come to see my face, mi bikesh zeis miedchem, who asked you for this from your hands? Remais chatzeirai, to trample on my courtyard. And the verse, the way it's being understood, is referring to in the time of exile, that that we are rejected, so to speak, from Hashem, and Hashem initially wanted to see us, and now Hashem, so to speak, doesn't want us. We are rejected, so to speak, from Hashem. So he cried, thinking about the fact, at least that's what it seems like, that it's based on the fact that we are rejected by Hashem, and we were the people that Hashem wanted to see us 3 times a year. So this is very painful to think about, that the fact that Hashem, so to speak, doesn't want to see us. Rav Huna, Kimati lahaikra, Rav Huna, when he came to another pasuk, this pasuk, Bachi, he cried. And what was this pasuk? V'zavachta shlamim v'achalta sham. You shall slaughter shlamim offerings. You shall slaughter these peace offerings, and ve'achalta sham, and you shall eat them. Eved sherabai mitzapa lechol al shulchanai, a servant that his master awaits to eat at his table, waits for the servant to eat at his table. Rabbi mitzapa lechol al shulchanai, yisrachik mimenu, he will separate himself from him. And the chsiv, as it says, Lamali roivs of chachem, what do I need all your sacrifices? Yemer Hashem, Hashem says. So at a time when we are supposed to be, Hashem is supposed to long for us to eat with him, so to speak, that we eat at his table, at such a isn't it sad that Hashem tells us, do I need all of your sacrifices? What do I need all these sacrifices for? Generally, that pasuk is used to emphasize that sacrifices are a wonderful way of connecting to Hashem. But if they're not brought with love and a feeling of connection, of closeness to Hashem, but instead they're just brought as, without that feeling of love, of cherishing this ability to give something to Hashem, but instead they're maybe done just out of rote, or just people feeling obligated, but with no feel. They're not feeling anything. There's no neshama in it. There's no soul in it. So Hashem tells them, what do I need all your sacrifices? Sacrifice is only a symbolic act that shows what you're feeling. But if the feeling is not there, then what do I need all your sacrifices for? The sacrifices in itself is not an end in and of itself. It's only a means to show how you feel. And if you don't have the feeling of love, of caring to give, to share, to give to Hashem, to want to connect with Hashem. So what do I need all your sacrifices for? Anyway, our Gemara is using it to emphasize the fact that we're in exile, and that when you read this pasuk, when Rav Huna read it, he would cry, because we're supposed to be by Hashem's table. Hashem wants us by his table, and unfortunately we are in a very low state. Hashem is in a mode where he's angry at us, so to speak, and he's telling us, what do I need all your sacrifices for? I don't want to see you. So we've been kicked out, so to speak. Which basically emphasizes the idea that Golos is the exile is totally not the norm. Wherein the norm is Geula, is redemption. That's the real, the way things should be, the way Hashem wants to be, the healthy state. It's not like some people think, oh, it would be a miracle if Mashiach came. No, Mashiach coming, that would be the norm. That would be a regular, normal family. That would be Hashem wants us at his table. The norm should be that this is the abnormal. See, some people think this is the way it is, and a miracle would make miracle happen. Mashiach would come. No, the norm would be that a father wants his family together and wants to join everyone, wants everyone to be there, and that would be the way the normal state that things should be in, and wouldn't be so. It's not surprising if Mashiach came. That would be the way things should be. That's the way things are supposed to go. And unfortunately, we are in this terrible state where Hashem is, so to speak, telling us, "What do I need all your sacrifices for?" He's kicked us out of his Beis Hamikdash. Okay, then comes the next Gemara. Rabbi Elazar kimati lahaikra. When Rabbi Elazar came to this pasuk, Bachi, he cried. What's the pasuk? This week's parsha. This week's Torah portion, we read this that Yosef, the story of Yosef and his brothers, when Yosef announced that I am Yosef, ha'oid avichai, is my father, is he still alive? So it says that his brothers could not answer him, ki nevhalu mipanav, because they were scared, nivhalu, like embarrassed, mipanav, from before him. So Rabbi Elazar, why did he cry when he read that? If the rebuke of a human is such, imagine the rebuke of Hashem, how much more so are we going to be shocked? Are we going to be unable to answer? This was only rebuke from a human. Imagine rebuke from Hashem. Now, what is the pshat? What was the rebuke here? What did Yosef ask? The simple question. He said he wants to know if his father's still alive, and they couldn't answer him because they were surprised. What's the rebuke? This was rebuke. Where's the rebuke here?
Well,
yes, Ben.
Maybe they were not afraid as long as their father was alive. But now Joseph doesn't know if the father is alive or not, and he's asking because if his father died, he can punish them.
So is it rebuke?
Wasn't it?
Well, it's telling them, I know that you did what you did.
Yeah, just 1 second, Zev. Hold on 1 second. Ben is talking. Ben, what?
He knows that they know that he was wronged. They know he was wrong. He says it's not later, it's not wrong. Hashem wanted it. But right now they don't know that that's what his feelings are.
Yeah, but he's not telling them anything about this. He didn't say anything about selling him. yet. He just said, I'm Yosef. You know.
But they know what they did. He doesn't have to tell them. So they are not sure what his reaction is going to be. That's why they got scared.
So they're nervous. They're nervous about the rebuke that's going to come.
Right.
They're nervous about this is even before the rebuke comes. They're nervous.
Right.
So just 1 second. Just 1 second, Reb Zev. So the way Ben says it is one of the commentaries mentions this as well. That like Ben just said that it's not rebuke yet, but they don't
know what's
about
coming.
that they're nervous of what the rebuke is going to be. Let me just read for you the verse, and then we're going to listen to Reb Zev over here. Ani Yosef oid avichai. So the verse, the full verse is Yosef told his brothers, I am Yosef. He asked if his father's still alive, and his brothers couldn't answer him because they were astounded. Okay, so that's the verse. He didn't say anything yet about his musar. Didn't even get to it yet. But the way Ben is saying is that they're nervous. What type of they couldn't answer. They're nervous. Who knows what he's going to say and what he's going to do. And imagine by Hashem, how much more so. Okay, yes, Reb Zev.
That will not happen to us when time comes. All our excuses are simply replay our deeds and show how false those excuses are. Somebody will say, I couldn't get up that early to go to Minyan. It will show him how early he gets up when he goes to play golf. So, but Yehuda just went to the spiel that if he don't come back with Binyamin, his father will die. Then said, Ani Yosef, how the Vichai, that you worried about my father dying when he did what he did to me?
Wow, very good, Zev. Zev says a very powerful vart here.
That's the rebuke. That it showed how their actions don't agree with what this all saying now.
So it is a rebuke. It's a powerful rebuke.
If he doesn't come with Binyamin, his father will die.
Right.
So he said, now when you did what you did to me, do you worried that my father will die? Then said, I'm Yosef. How would that be high?
Very powerful. So Reb Zev is saying that if you look at the words, it actually is a major rebuke, because Yehuda had a whole argument here that if Binyamin doesn't return home, Benjamin doesn't go back. If we don't get Benjamin back home, then his father will pass away. So Yosef says, really? His father will pass away if Binyamin doesn't get back home? What about me? I'm Yosef, your brother. What about me? Did you worry about your father then? Did he die then? Did he die when I didn't return home? Why is he going to die now? So that's a very powerful rebuke when he tells him, I am Yosef, and you didn't worry about it then. So this is the rebuke that Rebbe Elazar is all nervous of. He says, what's going to happen when Hashem rebukes us? That's just a human. And imagine how embarrassed they were. They couldn't even talk. They couldn't even answer simple question. And imagine how embarrassed we will be when Hashem rebukes us with all the many sins that maybe we may have. Okay, so the next, and then it gives another pasuk. Rebbe Elazar kimati lahaikra bachi. Rebbe Elazar, when he reached another pasuk, he cried. What was this other pasuk that he also would cry when he would read? It's Vayomer Shmuel al Shaul lo meher gastani laha lo soisi. This is another pasuk that we learned together in the afternoon by the story of Shmuel and Shaul. Shmuel had passed away already, and Shaul was about to go to war the next day with the Plishtim, and Shaul was very nervous, and he wanted to find out from Shmuel if he should really go to war or not. And he went around looking for a Baalas Oiv, someone who knew how to do this type of magic called Oiv, that he could bring up Shmuel Hanavi from the dead and ask him and talk to him and ask him what he should do about this war. And the problem he had was he had killed out all the Baalas Oiv. He had to clean the whole Jewish community from anyone who knew how to do Oiv. But he finally found this one person, this one woman who still knew how to do Oiv. And
Endor.
What is that?
Endor. The place he found her was Endor.
Eindar, in that place. Okay. And he brought up Shmuel, and Shmuel screamed at him. He said, "Lama hergastani lahal loisaisi." And why did you bother me, make me angry, to bring me up, to raise me up? So when Rebbe Elazar read that pasuk, he cried. What did he say? Uma Shmuel hatzadik. And just like Shmuel hatzadik, haya misyore min hadin, he was all nervous. What did it mean? Lama hergastani. Why did you make me angry? It doesn't mean angry. It means you worried me. You scared me. Why did you scare me? That Shmuel hatzadik was nervous min hadin, from judgment. Anu alachas kama v'kama, how much more so should we be afraid of judgment? Imagine Shmuel hatzadik. Shmuel calls him hatzadik. Shmuel, who probably had very little sins, maybe no sins at all. Shmuel was the holy of holies. It says Shmuel was on the same level of Moshe and Aaron. And the understanding of that is that Shmuel was on the level of Moshe and Aaron together. I've seen it brought down that way. That it means not that Moshe, that Shmuel was in the same level of Moshe and the same level as Aaron, but that Shmuel was on the same level of Moshe and Aaron together. As it says, Shmuel, Moshe v'Aaron b'chayna v'Shmuel b'kayrei shmai. And it compares the three of them, and Shmuel to Moshe and Aaron. So if Shmuel was nervous, he was so nervous of a judgment. What was he nervous of? He was nervous of being judged. Why was he nervous? How much more so are we going to be nervous? So Rebbe Elazar used to cry when he read that pasuk. So the Gemara says, Shmuel Maihi. How do we know that he was nervous of judgment? In other words, it says here Gaztani. It's a little vague what that means. You got me angry, you got me nervous. What the Gemara says it means he got nervous from a judgment. He was nervous he was going to be judged now. Because when you bring someone from the next world, they think they're coming into the courthouse. That's what they think. That's what he thinks. But the Gemara asks, how do we know that that's what it means? That he was nervous that he's going to be judged. So the Gemara, the Chsiv, as it says, "Vatomer ha'isha el Shaul Elokim ra'isi oilim." The woman who was doing this oiv, she said to Shaul. Shaul was the king at the time, and he was the one who hired her to bring up Shmuel. So she said to Shaul, Elokim ra'isi oilim. I saw a godly man ascending. And now oilim doesn't fit with the word with the godly man. Oilim is plural. Oilim trey mashma. When it says oilim, it sounds like it's two people are elevating. Chad Shmuel, v'idach, one of them was Shmuel. V'idach, the other one, the Azal Shmuel v'asye Moshe b'hadei. Shmuel went and he took Moshe with him, and that means that Shmuel was the one who was brought up, and for some reason he brought someone else with him, because it says the word oilim. So we learn from there that there must have been an additional person there. The Gemara says, you know who that additional person was? It was Moshe Rabbeinu, none other than Moshe Rabbeinu. Amar Lei, and Shmuel said to Moshe, Dilma chas v'shalom ladina misba'ina. Maybe, God forbid, I'm being called for judgment. Kum bahadoi, come up and stand bahadoi with me. Kum bahadoi, stand together with me. The leka milsa de chasavta be'oraisa. There's nothing that's written in the Torah. The loy kiyamtiya. That nothing in the Torah is there that's written there that I didn't fulfill. So what does this mean? That Shmuel wanted Moshe Rabbeinu to sort of be some type of an advocate for him.
Okay, there.
What exactly? What type of advocate did he? What did he want him to do? So Teves over here has an interesting thing. He says he didn't want him to testify that he fulfilled all the mitzvahs. How would Moshe Rabbeinu know that Shmuel fulfilled all the mitzvahs? He wasn't in his generation. He was he was already in heaven, Moshe Rabbeinu. But he says that you can explain. You can advocate for me by explaining heaven how you expounded on the meaning of the mitzvahs, and that in this way, whatever I did, I know I followed how you taught them. So, in other words, I need you to explain that this is you should testify how you expounded, how you explained the mitzvahs. In this way, it'll be clear that I didn't do anything wrong. That's the way Teves explains it, based on the fact that Moshe cannot testify for Shmuel about his actions, but he can testify how he explained the mitzvahs. Moshe can expound on how he can testify how he interpreted the mitzvahs, and based on that, Shmuel's actions would be justified. There are other points that could be mentioned over here. There are other nice. There's an interesting insight over here that why exactly was Shmuel, what was Shmuel really doing by bringing Moshe Rabbeinu? So could be one of the explanations is that Shmuel had an issue that he was nervous about. What did Shmuel ever do wrong? Well, it does say that his sons did not follow his ways.
Yes.
Now, the fact that they didn't follow in his ways, Shmuel might have been nervous about that. And what we know about children following the ways of their parents, we do have we do have a message, we do have a lesson from Moshe and Aaron. What do we find about Moshe and Aaron? Well, Moshe's kids didn't exactly follow in Moshe Rabbeinu's ways. We don't know that they didn't exactly become leaders. Or we do find in the book of Shoftim some
his grandson
issue about his grandson.
Yeah.
So we do find some issues about Moshe Rabbeinu's children and grandchildren, and Aaron, we find that his kids did follow in his ways. What's the difference? Well, it's very hard to balance being a leader and caring about all of your community and caring about your kids. Moshe reached his shleimus. He fulfilled what was expected of him, so to speak. He reached a level of completeness, but it did have a little maybe negative effect on his kids. Aaron, on the other hand, didn't fully reach his potential, at least what we would maybe imagine that he could have accomplished. But he did have an impact on his kids, and they followed in his ways. And so what Shmuel was doing was bringing Moshe Rabbeinu with him. Let me mute
Yes,
everyone.
please.
Let me
Warm
mute
shirt.
everyone. 1 second. 1 second. There's too much noise. So what Shmuel did was he brought Moshe Rabbeinu with him to sort of show that that what Shmuel did. Shmuel was totally iber gegeben. He was very given over to his community by always traveling to them. He never took any food from any of them, never took any gifts. He was always traveling around the entire. So in a certain sense, the way he balanced his family with the community, he did maybe do a little too much community versus family. And based on that, he brought Moshe Rabbeinu to sort of show that what he did was not wrong. This was the way Moshe Rabbeinu did it, and he did the same thing. And his kids, didn't turn out exactly in his footsteps, but this is what he felt was he tried what he could, and that was the way he balanced things out. And it was similar to Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's an interesting little insight of based on some of the commentaries and so on. I see we have a lot of people who don't like this, I guess. I see we have a few hands up. Ben?
Yeah, I wanted to say in simple words, he wanted Moses to explain what the expectation from him was. And the people or whoever is judging him can compare that to his deeds, because Moses didn't know how he behaved. He was in a different generation, but he can explain his expectations, and then they can compare it to the results. And then he would be found that he didn't do anything wrong.
Right. Okay, so that sounds like what Teves was emphasizing, right? Okay, and Yehuda, I think, wanted to say something. Yehuda.
Well, I'm going to say two things that appear to be contradictory, but I don't think they are.
Okay.
First of all, Moshe and Aaron were they each did what they were supposed to do. There's a saying that that when a person dies, they're not going to try to compare you to Moshe. They're going to, why didn't you do what you were supposed to do? I don't
good
remember.
line. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So each of them did what they were supposed to do.
Right. It is a little surprising to explain it this way, that Aaron didn't really reach his potential. It's a little surprising to say that, which is what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not so comfortable with that. The only way I can I understand that line is maybe it should be worded a little differently. Not that he didn't reach his potential, but some people thought that maybe he didn't reach his potential. And the reason I say it that way is, why did Nadav and Avihu pass away? So we know that they brought a fire, a strange fire, right? But there are numerous explanations, even in the Gemara, about what sin they did.
Right.
And one of the thoughts is based on the fact that banim lo hayu lahem, they did not have any children. Why didn't they have any children? Because they felt that their father was wrong for spending too much time with family. And so they said, we're not having children. We're going to be able to really be holy and spiritual. And based on that, there was a thought that maybe Aaron didn't reach his potential. He could have done a lot more, maybe if he didn't concentrate as much on his family. So that would be the understanding maybe over here, that maybe Moshe, we feel, reached his potential. Everyone felt that way, and it did have maybe a negative effect on his kids, whatever. At least it looks that way. And Aaron possibly maybe could be looked at that maybe he didn't. If you compare Moshe and Aaron, it could be maybe Aaron could have done more. And based on his fan base, and we see it from the fact that two of his kids didn't like his path. They felt that it was wrong, and therefore they didn't want to have kids, and they didn't want to have a family, or at least at that stage, and that which is there is discussion about this, that the Avos, Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, why did they all have kids at such a late a late age? Because they never would have been able to accomplish what they needed to had they had a family early on. So therefore, they spent years and years accomplishing what they needed to, and then Hashem gave them the bracha of having children. So, you have this idea sort of hinted to, and it's broad, and I'm basing this on a Meshech Chochma and a Ksav Sofer. It's not it's not my own insight, but it's based on some insights of these commentaries that it ends up being a little understanding over here of why Shmuel would have brought Moshe Rabbeinu, and being that he sort of felt that he was in a similar situation where you're doomed no matter what you do. You spend too much time with your family and you don't accomplish enough with the community that your job is supposed to be to help. So you're doomed. And if you spend too much time with them, you're doomed, because what about your family? And who is able to figure out what is exactly the perfect balance? So, but he brought Moshe Rabbeinu because maybe he figured that was who maybe he's going to have a problem explaining his kids. So he figured, let me bring Moshe Rabbeinu. That's just one of the understandings over here of this Gemara. Again, it's not, I didn't put this together, but this is one of the common, it's brought, it's mentioned. Yes, Yehuda.
Yeah, so with the example that you brought of the Avos, Abraham and Sarah were praying to God to have children.
Right.
So it wasn't that they didn't want children, they did.
Right, but it could be Hashem didn't.
Right.
It could be that Hashem didn't want them to have at that age when they were young, because they wouldn't have been able to accomplish as much as they needed to. It could be that's why Hashem didn't give them. But you're right; they felt they would be able to. They weren't looking for their own interests.
Right.
But Hashem might have been looking for their interests.
Right.
Does that answer what you were going to ask? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, any other thoughts? Anyone? Yes, Ben.
I'm not sure that that's the only answer of the difference between Aaron and Moses.
I'm sure it's not.
I thought that maybe Aaron didn't do enough to stop making the egel.
Right.
He wanted to delay it, which was a great tactic, to think about that, to delay it until Moses gets there. But he was not successful. But I think he should have been ready to talk against it from the beginning, and even if he had to give his life up for it.
Right. So if you want to connect that with this insight, what you would say is that the fact that he didn't give his life up for it might be that he was a little too connected to this world, too involved in this world, rather than in the statement that he could have made. And so that would be connected to this idea as well, that Shmuel specifically picked Moshe to bring up. That was they were a bit overly concerned about their mission, something along those lines. Yes, Yehuda.
Yeah, the Aaron because they murdered her, he figured that if he doesn't go along with it, they're going to murder him,
Yeah.
and then there's just all havoc would break out.
Right,
So I
right.
don't think he was doing it from a
His
personal
interest.
reason.
Right, right. True, very true. But it
But-
could have looked it could have looked that way. But you're right. It was definitely for spiritual reasons.
Right.
He had the whole
True,
the whole
correct.
tribe of Levi. He had the whole tribe of Levi that he was leading,
Right,
and he could have used them from the beginning. At the end, they did solve the problem.
right.
Tribe of
Correct,
Levi.
True.
So,
Thank you, Yehuda. Good point, and thank you, Ben. Yes, good point. Yes, David.
Yeah, to amplify what Yehuda's saying, he didn't want them to be, they were already guilty of killing Hur, and he thought that not only will they kill another Jew, but they're going to kill the Kohen Gadol. He didn't want them to be guilty of killing the Kohen Gadol.
Right.
Right.
And, is that your own thought, or is that
So
mentioned
that's the sages bring
mentioned
down.
over there?
Yeah.
Interesting. Good point. Good point, David. Very good. Okay, so again, not that we're seeing anything negative about Aaron, we were just contrasting Aaron's kids to Moshe's kids, and the lesson that Nadav and Avihu took from Aaron, which maybe was connected to this idea that Moshe maybe was a little very he concentrated his efforts very much on his mission, and Shmuel maybe followed in that path. Now, the bottom line is that at least the simple understanding of the Gemara is that Rabbi Elazar cried when he came to this pasuk, because he says if Shmuel needed support for was nervous, Shmuel HaTzadik was nervous of the Yom Hadin, how much more so we should be nervous of this Yom Hadin. Or nervous min hadin. Ono alachas kama v'kama us, how much more so we should be nervous from any judgment. Okay, and the next pasuk, the next Gemara mentions Rav Ami kimoti lahaikra. Rav Ami, when he reached this other pasuk, he cried, Yitain ba'afar piyu ula yesh tikva. This is a pasuk in Eicha that Yitain, he will put in my mouth earth, sand, the earth, and maybe there is hope. And what does this mean? That this is about the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, and he says that let him put or yitain ba'afar pihu. I think I translated it wrong. Yitain ba'afar pihu. Let him put in the sand or in the dust pihu, their mouth. Ula yesh tikva, maybe there is hope. Amar, so Rami said, Kulei hai, such afflictions, the ulai, and it's only maybe there's hope. In other words, after we suffer all of this, and it's only a maybe? Shouldn't this be like a definite? We'll be able to rebuild? It's maybe? We're going to go through all these Yisurim, Rashi says, Kol ha-Yisurim halolu yikabel, and receive all these pains, and it's only a suffix, it's only going to be a maybe? Maybe there's hope? And so he would cry when he came to that pasuk. Okay, I guess we'll stop here. It's 11:01. Sei gesund, everyone.